What is going on, everybody? It's Skills here on the gaming channel, and today we're just going to be putting together two skill builds, the Hardwire build, two different ways to run it, and I think these are the two main ways most people run this build. Now, if you guys have any questions on this, always use the comment section down below. If you enjoy videos like this, always leave a thumbs up. But let's get into the first build, and then right after that, we'll get into the second build. First thing you'll notice, I am running the demolition specialization, and that's because I do want that extra explosive damage that you get when you do have a demolitionist. Now, if you look at my stats, I'm running 5 offensive, 5 defensive, 12 utility. That's going to put my armor at 235,000, my health at 35,000, which I don't even really need to worry about. My skill power is at 3,500, and my seeker mines are at 3,184. Now, ideally, I would like to cut those both back, probably down to 3,000 max. But right now, just the rolls I have, and I'll show you where I can improve that. Now, for the weapons, I am running a custom P416. Now, this has some pretty good talents for skill builds. If you look at this one right here, we have spiked headshot kills grant 35% skill damage for 20 seconds. And then I also have 20% magazine capacity on this one, and I have recharge. While equipped, skills deploy at full armor have 25% duration, charges, and ammo. And since this one is a pretty solid weapon, I don't mind having a bigger mag size versus the Allegro on this, and since it's for PvE, it works perfectly fine. Now, the way I'm going to have this one modded, I do have that 5% damage to elites. I'm running a 20 round extended mag. I have 10% stability on the angle grip, and we are running 5% damage to elites on the muzzle. Now, the main weapon I am using is the Merciless when I'm not using the P416. A lot of clips you probably saw, I am running the Merciless. It works really good with this build, and since they did buff the Merciless in Title Update 6, man, this one at 28.9k, you can shoot it pretty fast with 400 RPM. Mag size is 30, and it just does work now. Those are the two weapons I am running. For this weapon right here, you can run whatever you want. I highly recommend running usually the weapon you have on here, because look, if you look at this one, it has in rhythm. While equipped, enemy kills have 5% chance to refresh active skill cooldowns, which is great, right? So you get a better chance of getting your skills that much faster, and it has Wascally on there. So now for the build itself, we are running a 3-piece. Look at this, a 3-piece Hardwire with a 1-piece China Light, but we'll break it all down right now. So for the mask, I'm running a China Light. This is going to give me that 10% explosive damage. We do want to kind of stack some type of explosive damage on this build. They did nerf stacking explosive damage on your whole build, but we can still make up for it with this build. So we have 10% explosive damage with 1-piece China Light, 200 skill power, 51% damage to elites, and then we have Surge on here with that 20% skill haste. Now, I recommend putting something like skill haste on your build, because you're going to max out your skill power before you know it with this build. So if you can have a couple places that have skill haste, it's going to benefit you in the long run to get those skills back faster if they don't automatically come back right away after a kill. And you'll see why, because of some of the talents. If we dive into the chest piece, we are running our first piece of Hardwire. Now, what Hardwire is doing, it's giving us 20% skill power. It has the 3-piece bonus, which gives us tamper proof, electrify your deploy skills. So if you run this one, sometimes I run this with a turret, or sometimes I run this with the bombardier drone. In some of the clips you saw that I was running it with the turret, and I like it because it electrifies the area. So if an enemy does come up towards it, it will electrify them, allowing you to hit that enemy. And as you've seen in this clip, I'm able to kill them, and my turret stays upright. So that's what's pretty cool about it. It causes enemy wandering too close to be shocked. Can occur every 10 seconds. Now, if we go down to the fourth, this is going to be the feedback loop. Killing with a skill resets cooldown of your other skills. Repairing your friendly agent's armor from 0 resets the cooldown of your skills. This can occur every 15 seconds. So now this one's really good. So if you're killing with a skill, it resets the cooldown of your other skill. So when I'm using the bombardier drone and the seeker mines, this works great because they go hand in hand, right? If I get a kill, it resets the cooldown of my other skill, and vice versa. I like that. And then it says, when a skill cooldown ends on reaching full charges, gain bonus damage and repairs to all skills for 15 seconds. So you get some bonus damage when your skills cooldown ends. So that's pretty cool. Now, the stats on this one, I have skill power, headshot damage, armor, and then I have hard hitting. I do have hard hitting on 1-piece because remember, other skill, and vice versa, like that. And then it says, when reaching full charges, gain bonus damage and repairs to all skills for 15 seconds. So you get some bonus damage when your skills cooldown ends. So that's pretty cool. Now the stats on this one, I have headshot damage, armor, and then I have hard hitting. Skill, I do have hard hitting cooldown on one piece because remember other skill and vice versa. I like that. And then it says when on reaching full charges, gain bonus damage and repeat all skills for 15 seconds. So you get some bonus damage, hurt skill power, or just having the skill power and then having the explosive damage. That's the one you want to go there. And then for the mod slots, recommend putting armor, that total armor on kill if you can. And then offensive mod slots, since I primarily am using the merciless, I decided to go with the rifle damage and then the weapon damage. We go into the holster. The holster is going to give me that second piece, and this has skill power, critical hit damage, and then it has skill power, and it has a utility. Now, right here is where I could roll it again. I don't need that critical hit damage, so I recommend, if you can, put skill power, maybe put some skill haste. If you can grab some off like one of these other ones, like something like this, skill haste. So this is where I could improve the build a little bit. Right here is roll that critical hit damage. I'm just waiting to see if I get lucky with another hardwire before I start wasting a lot of credits, because you know a lot of builds are coming out, so you want to be a little bit careful on what you're re-rolling. But the build is already working really well, and I honestly don't need a lot of skill haste on this build since most of my skills come back instantly with the way this build is set up. But right here is where I would improve skill power and then put that skill haste. Or if you want to have more health and just have a little bit more health in case when your armor gets depleted, this is another place you could put like a 40k health roll right here. So if you want to go skill haste, you can go skill haste. If you want to go health, you can go health. It's up to you. Now you're going to have 2 utility mod slots like I told you. Right here is where you're going to want to put that 2.5% explosive damage on both. And then of course it's already going to have skill power. We get into the knee pads. The knee pads are the third piece. This has skill haste, so I recommend putting skill haste on this one because you won't need the skill power. And then we have a utility mod slot with another 4.5 explosive damage. Now if I could get a couple of these 4.5 explosive damage ones, this is ideally what I would really want on all my builds. Now I only have a couple like this, but this is what I really want to go for, this 4.5 explosive damage. So I'm going to be farming for these. If you can get those, that's what you want to get, but 2.5 is what ideally I usually get. But some of you guys might have god rolls on these, but that's how you can improve the build. And then for the defensive mod slot, we're running the armor and then the total armor. We get into the gloves, the last piece of hardwire, and this is going to give us skill power, health, and we have a utility mod slot. Now here, if you want to put some rifle damage, you could. You don't really need the health, so you can go skill power, and then you could go with rifle damage. Since most of my damage is coming from my skills, this doesn't really, like, you don't have to waste credits for this. But if you want to min-max your build, make it perfect, make it as best as possible, you'd probably put whatever weapon you want to use. If you want to use the AR, then put assault rifle. If you want to put the merciless, you want to put rifle damage here. And then for the utility mod slot, I was out of explosive damage, right? I just had so many utility mod slots on this one that I just put one for XP, weak point kills, and then increased shock duration, and then it has skill power. And then for the backpack, we're finally on the backpack. The Alp Summit backpack. This one has 20% skill haste, so I'm getting some more skill haste. I have armor, I have skill power, so I recommend at least having something with armor and skill power on there. Some people would put probably like skill haste and skill power, but I like having armor on my build since I'm not going to run any heals. At least I know I can get into cover. Now, this is the one place you want to put destructive, so you want to have destructive on one piece, so you get that 40% explosive damage. And then with the talent, this is where you can mix and max. If you want to have skilled, you can. I like skilled since I'm not running a lot of skill haste. If you're going to stack a lot of skill haste on this build, then you could probably go with technical support, and we'll talk about that in a second. But this one's skilled, so it gives me skill kills, have 25% chance to reset skill cooldowns, 6 or more utilities, so I'm able to do that. If you don't want to use skilled, and because you are using a lot of skill haste, well then why don't you put tech support, kills by active skills, and explosives grant 25% skill damage for 10 seconds. So that would work great if you're running the Bombardier Drone and the Seeker Mines. It's really up to you if you want to run skilled, if you want to run tech support. I'm going to leave that one up to you guys. Now for the utility mods, this is where I'm going to have more explosive damage. So I got 2.5%. If you have those 4.5 and up, that's up to you. And then we have the offensive mod slot, offensive system firearms. We have the rifle damage plus the 1.5% weapon. So let's check out what my skills are actually doing though, right? So for my Seeker Mine, I have a 37% cluster cooldown on both my Seeker Mine and my Bombardier Drone. On my clusters, 568,000 1,000 damage, and when I hit those elites, it's above 1,000,000. Now the PvP damage, we're not really worried about since it's for our PvE, right? For the drone's almost pushing 900,000, and it has 4 bombs. The radius is 4 meters. And then on the Seeker Mines, we have 9 mines here. So both of these are hitting really hard. If you want to use a turret like I am using it, you can. This turret is doing around 23,000 damage. So if you want to get into the stats, we can go all the way down because we're not really worried about the weapon damage. You guys already know what that is. Just so you know, headshot damage is around 61%. But let's keep going down, and we are going to get into, look at my damage to elites, which really matters, 86%. That's great. Only 2 pieces have that. Explosive damage, almost 90% explosive damage. So we have 86% damage to elites, 90% pretty much explosive damage, and that's where we are getting a lot of our damage. And if you look at our explosive damage, where we're getting it from, it shows you right here on the right hand side all the pieces that we're getting it from. So that wraps up the first way we run our first hardwire build. Now we're going to show you guys the second one, so let's dive into it. The build itself, I'm running a demolitionist because I want the extra explosive damage on this build just to make those secret mines give it that and then of course I'm running my merciless, which it goes off explosive damage, so you know. Where base damage on this is at 27.5k. This is my main weapon, if I'm not using a flame turret. Now if I am using my flame turret like you saw in one of my clips, well then I'll run the Pyromaniac. And the reason why I run the Pyromaniac is because it gives you perfectly ignited. You deal 40% weapon damage to burning enemies. Now another reason I do always have this one equipped is because of the fact that it has rooted. While equipped and in cover, all skill damage and healing is increased by 25%. So as long as I'm in cover when I throw out my skills, I will get that extra 25% skill damage, which is great for my build. So I'm just stacking damage on top of damage on top of damage. Now what's great about the Merciless is when it's holstered, so if I'm using my M4 as my primary, remember you get that 5% chance to deal 100% explosive damage. So running these two either way works great. The Merciless is great against those mechanical dogs that you could probably see. Now another great thing about having the Demolitionist is the sidearm gives you in rhythm, and what in rhythm does is while equipped, enemy kills have 5% chance to refresh active skill cooldowns. Now this can occur once every 60 seconds. So that's another good reason to have the Demolitionist active. Now if we get into the build itself, I'm running 3 offensive, 6 defensive, and 14 utility. Now that is why I am pushing this with the BTSU gloves. So I'm running 4-piece hardwire. Now this is going to give me 284,000 armor, so almost 300k, right? I have a nice decent size health, 70k, and then my skill power is at 2795 on both my turret and my seeker mines. Now if we get into the mask is going to have 29% skill haste, 42% damage to elites, and then I have 1 utility mod, which I have skill power on there, and then I'm going to be stacking explosive damage throughout this build on the utility mods. Now the reason why Hardwire works so good is because it gives you 20% skill power, plus it gives you tamper proof, electrify your deploy skills like hive, turrets, pulse sensors. So when you saw I threw out my turret, right, it was shooting out this little electricity, and anytime an enemy gets close to it, well that will trigger my BTSU gloves. So that's why it's great to run Hardwire with BTSU gloves. Now remember, if I get a kill with my turret, it's going to refresh the skill cooldown on my seeker mines. If I get a kill with my seeker mines, it'll refresh the kill cooldown on my turret, and then that can occur every 15 seconds. If we get into the chest piece, you can see I am running 3 attributes, 1 yellow, 1 red, 1 blue, and I have 1,000 skill power. I have 6.5 headshot damage. I'd rather have weapon damage right here. And then I have 14k armor. We have hard hitting on here for 25% damage to elites. And then we have a utility mod slot that's going to give me skill power, and then look, 5% explosive damage. And then I have another one that's a defensive mod slot, so this is going to give me 3% total armor, plus 3k armor, plus 4% protection from elites, and then look, an offensive mod slot with 6% rifle damage, and that's great for the Merciless. We get into the holster, and then the holster is going to give me a yellow attribute, a blue attribute, so we put skill power there. We put a 40k 1 health roll, so we can have some decent sized health in case I lose my armor. I have time to pop my armor kit. We have utility mod slot, which has 4.5 explosive damage, some skill power, and then we have another one that's going to give us skill power and then 3.5% explosive damage. We get into the knee pads. This is the 4-piece of Hardwire, and this is going to give us 22% skill haste. So I am stacking skill haste on this build because I don't have to stack that much skill power because of my chest piece has that 1k roll already, right? So remember, you don't really need to have more than 3k skill power, and all of my mods that I'm currently using are maxed out at 2780, I think. So right now I'm good. If I did get a little bit more, then I might switch out some of these utility mods for higher skill power ones. So if you look at this utility mod, we have burn damage, 3.5% explosive damage, and then we have skill power. Then we have a defensive mod slot that's going to give us 3.5% total armor, and then armor on there. The gloves are great. This is why I like running BTSU gloves, because remember, it really excels on when you have lots of yellows. I have 14 yellows. So let's look at energy infusion. Whenever you apply status effect, so whenever I apply a status effect, your gloves become infused with that for 60 seconds. Now, the reason why it's great to have those 14 utilities is because this next line. While infused, you gain 10% skill damage, 10% skill healing and repair, and 10% skill duration for each utility you have. So 14 utility times 10%, bam. We are putting out a lot of damage, and the duration on them are lasting a lot longer. You apply the same status effect while infused does not refresh the infusion. So you can't keep reapplying the same status effects. So you have to apply different status effects. So once it goes on cooldown, re-put them on status effects and you'll be good. Now, look at this, charge proxies. Whenever you throw a skill, 1.25% seconds later, after landing, it creates an explosion, applying that infused status effect to the enemy within 6 meters. So that's another great way for you to apply that status effect. That's why this is really cool, right? This is how this all stacks up. It works really good. Great thing about BTSU gloves is they always come with 2 yellows and a blue. So that's how I'm getting that 14 utility. This has skill, power, explosive damage. We have another one with skill power, some more explosive damage, and then we have a defensive mod slot. So we're putting 3% total armor, and that almost 6k armor right there. The last piece is the backpack, and this is where you could swap it out a little bit. I went for a little bit more damage on this build, so we're running Alp Summit, which gives us 20% skill haste. We have 26% skill haste on the attributes, plus we have 18.5% total armor. We have perfect tech support, so kills by active skills and explosives grant 30% skill damage. So if my turret gets a kill, the next secret mines I throw out, if I throw them out within those 10 seconds, I'll get 30% more skill damage. Or vice versa, if I get a kill with my secret mines, the next turret I throw out is going to have 30% more skill damage. That's what, and it only requires 6 or more utilities, so you're always going to have this. You always should put at least 1 piece with destructive, so you get that 40% explosive damage for those secret mines, and we'll see how hard the secret mines are hitting base damage, right, in just a second. And then this comes with 2 utilities, so it has skill power, explosive damage, and then I have skill power on here and burn damage. Now, if you don't want to run perfect tech support, you can run skilled, which is another great talent. Skill kills have 25% chance to reset skill cooldowns. Now, I usually like running skilled, but if I want to just put out a lot of damage, perfect tech support is amazing. Definitely how I would recommend running it if you're going to run perfect tech support on your build. Let's check out the damage on the Seeker Mines and then the turret. So on the Seeker Mines, it has a 30 seconds cooldown, but we're not worried about that because we should get it back with Hardwire. We have 612,000 damage. We have 9 mines, and the blast radius is 4 meters. That's why this is really good build. And then you remember this multiplies with the amount of damage to elites and stuff like that. So I'll show you that in just a second. And don't forget, once we have the BTSU gloves active, if I throw out Secret Mines, you add that damage on top of this. The same with the turret. The turret has base damage of 23,000, and that goes up based on the damage to elites if I'm fighting a elite or named enemy. And then of course also it goes up if I have BTSU gloves active and I throw out the turret after. Now sometimes I do like to run my flame turret, and that's up to you. Flame turret, regular turret, however you want to run this. Now remember, when you do throw out the turret, if you do have the Hardwire set on, it creates that electricity, and that will create a status effect. Let's go into my stats, right? So let's check out the stats real quick. If we go into the stats, we go all the way down, keep going down. Let's go into the skills real quick. Where is it at? Right here. So damage to elites, we're at 80% damage to elites, 92% explosive damage. So look at that. That's why with this build, we are putting out a lot of damage. And then with having the turret, with having the extra utility mods, and then not even that, our weapon is pretty decent. We are running, if we run the M4, it's at almost 12k and then it gets 40% more damage if I run the fire turret, because you remember we get the 40% damage to burning enemies. Not only that, if I decide to run my merciless, that already hits pretty hard. So this is how I run my build. This is definitely my go-to skill build. This is the perfect skill build for me, how I run it. I think it puts out a lot of damage, you get those skills back, and you can just keep launching them and you hit really hard. So if you're looking for the best bang for your buck, the best way to run your BTSU gloves, and you have the hardwire pieces, this is how you're running. Now if you don't have the hardwire pieces and you just have the BTSU gloves, run the other skill build I put out. I think that's a great way to run that build. You get your skills back really fast. And then if you just want to run a hardwired set with 4 reds and you don't want to run the BTSU gloves, you can run the original build I put out initially. But this is it. This is my go-to skill build. If you guys want to see how I run it just like this. I appreciate all the support, everybody. Thank you guys again, but we are going to wrap up this video, and until the next build video on Division 2, nothing but skills out.